Hello everyone, my name is Gus.
Hi, I'm Woody.
Today we are reacting to a video by a very popular mortician on YouTube.
Oh.
Who, even though she deals with a lot of
death,
I
guess,
she decided to share her biggest fear ever, and it involves cave diving. Interesting.
Is she a cave diver?
No, I don't think so.
Oh. I mean, she could have been. I was just saying, maybe she's a cave diver and a death worshiper, or I don't know what morticians do. Exactly.
Okay.
Hello, deathlings! You tell me all the time what freaks you out about death. Now, I'm not complaining. You should tell me what freaks you out about death. This is the place for it. I'd like to think of my channel as a place of fear and fun, of existential despair and whimsy. But today, I'm gonna tell you about the one death thing that really freaks me out. Do you have nightmares about the dead? If so, what are those nightmares?
No.
What are those nightmares?
What are those
nightmares? What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares? 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 What nightmares? You're a nightmare, shut up. I do have one major dead body phobia. It's underwater cave diving corpses. I know, you're thinking, really? After all the stuff you've talked about, cave diving corpses freak you out?
What?
Bear with me.
Where?
For those of you who aren't haunted by the image of dead bodies floating in a dark, watery grave, cave diving is basically spelunking, only underwater.
But where?
Typically,
I'm
scuba
confused.
divers dive in open water.
Can you help me? Wait. No, I'm just confused. A mortician, I think their perspective is always to talk about death, but sometimes you pre-watch these. Is there a particular cave that she's talking about where there's a bunch of dead bodies? I'm serious.
What are you talking about? What cave?
Okay. Well, it seemed like she was referencing the cave with a bunch of dead bodies floating around.
That's
I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe it was. Okay.
Anything between themselves and the surface. But cave divers use special scuba equipment to explore underwater caves and tunnels, very often in extreme depths.
Yep.
In cave diving, a diver always has something looming overhead, like the rocky ceiling of an underground chamber, or one's own mortality.
What?
Even amongst expert divers, cave diving is considered one of the most dangerous sports a person can partake in.
Yeah.
At the Eagle's Nest sinkhole in Florida, this sign is actually posted underwater to deter cave divers from passing what could be the point of no return.
And that's a good point. I actually am going to say I'm glad you brought that up because, listen, we have a Grim Reaper sign in every single cave. Because we do actually think that if you are not a proper trained, certified cave diver, there's a pretty good chance that if you went into Eagle's Nest, you would die.
That's right.
So I have no problem with. I'm glad she brought that up.
When she said, at Eagle's Nest, there's the Grim Reaper sign. I mean, I guess she was correct, but it's also at Ginny. It's also every cave. And not every cave has the same sign. Like in Mexico, it will be like yellow with red letters that will say like stop, whatever. But all these caves have a sign that tells people, unless you're cave certified, do not go in this cave.
And that's what it says. Everybody's reading it here. So, okay, good.
I don't know, when the Grim Reaper's there beckoning you, saying, come on in, the water's fine, maybe you should rethink this adventure. Hundreds of people have died in cave diving accidents, more than can officially be recorded. And not just inexperienced divers who ventured beyond their capabilities, but experts and instructors with thousands of hours of dive time logged. Czech Exley, the man who literally wrote the book on cave diving and was a mentor to many cave divers, lost his life when diving in a freshwater sinkhole in Mexico. In fact, a lot of the deaths attributed to cave diving occur when experts are attempting to retrieve the corpses of cave diving victims.
Okay, so this argument comes up a lot when you're talking to people, especially if they don't watch Dive Talk, about the risks of cave diving. There's always the Czech Exley who basically invented cave diving, died cave diving. Well, that's not true. Chick actually died at a sinkhole, which is a hole that goes really deep. I think it's the deepest sinkhole in Mexico. And he was trying to, like, break the record for depth inside the sinkhole, and he died of extreme death-related illness. I think he was at 1,000 feet, 800 feet, something like that. Super deep. We went into extreme detail on his death on a video here on the channel. Because, again, this comes up a lot, and we will link the video for you up here.
Yeah. I don't even know if that actual sinkhole where he was a overhead environment.
I think you have to go through a cave from the river to get to the sinkhole. That's how you used to get.
I was wrong on that.
But where he died, it wasn't a cave.
No, it was related to, remember, he was having tremors and all of that.
Yeah,
the video explains that. Okay, good.
Once in the depths of the Earth's ancient flooded caves, it's cold, there's no light, the pressure on the human lungs is enormous, and something called nitrogen narcosis can take place. Nitrogen narcosis occurs when a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen and a diver's breathing is unbalanced. The deeper they go, the worse it gets, leading to a feeling of inebriation, euphoria, and lack of judgment.
So I just, I do want to
add clarity.
Yeah, she's on the right track. Nitrogen, she said a lot of things here, so I just want to make sure everybody understands. One is you can't feel this enormous pressure, right?
No.
But the additional pressure from being at depth, two things are happening. One, the nitrogen is absorbing into your tissues, the nitrogen bubbles. Therefore, it takes time for those bubbles to come out through your lungs and ultimately off-gas it. Longer you're at those depths, the longer that takes. The nitrogen narcosis that she's referring to really has to do with the fact that under pressure, the gases become narcotic, like make you out of your mind or lack of clarity.
Right.
Just want to make sure we're keeping those things in check. I think she's not too far off on what she's saying there.
But she's like, when a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen in your body and you're breathing unbalanced. Like, what? Air is a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen.
Now, I get it. We're just clarifying that she's not a diver, but she is right. There is narcosis can happen when you're diving non-helium gas at depth because it turns narcotic.
We do get this question a lot too, which is, do you feel more pressure inside a cave? And she said, your lungs are under extreme pressures. No,
I can't.
When you're inside the cave, it feels like if you were out in the ocean. There's no difference. It's not colder. It's not whatever. The water temperature, at least in the caves that we dive, is the same. Where you start at the bottom, like nothing changes.
Yeah, the Florida springs for the most part are 72 in the High Springs area.
Right.
Some of the caves there are 68. Okay.
And that's when accidents can happen. With little to no visibility, especially if silt has been kicked up by flippers, divers can get disoriented and lost, sending them in the wrong direction. In cave diving, you don't just need enough oxygen mix to descend, you also need enough to decompress and get the hell out, which can actually take hours to do. Not to mention, it's unknown exactly how deep and expansive some underwater cave networks are.
Yes.
This perfect storm of problems that can plague cave divers, it's a sad fact that many of the world's most famous sinkholes have hosted a few corpses, some of which have yet to be found. For some reason, the idea of coming upon a corpse in the dark, deep, claustrophobic depths is, for me, a If a diver happens upon a corpse in an underwater cave, it's not as simple as just towing the corpse back up to the surface.
Well, okay.
Very often the corpse is partially buried or tangled in a line or wedged in a place that it can't easily be pulled free from.
I just want to look. I get it. She's a mortician, and the subject of her videos is obviously going to be death. And I don't even know that necklace. Maybe that represents death or something.
What?
I just keep looking at her necklace, and I get scared. I don't know. Is that like a death necklace or something? That's how much I know about this stuff. But please understand, everybody, that I don't know of anybody that wasn't actively looking for a known dead body that swam upon a dead body in a cave. I don't know of anybody. Maybe it's happened. we've never heard of it happening.
Never.
Yes, it is true when they are going for a body recovery. It can be, she's right, it can be super difficult to recover that body. It's bloated, it's floating, there's a blood layer. You need special equipment to, tie the body together and bring it out.
So it doesn't fall apart.
But it seems like she's going down a path to where, like, one of the things that can happen when you cave dive is you can swim upon a dead body.
Yeah, like.
And I've just never ever have heard of that happening.
1 out of 10 cave dives, you're probably gonna swim into a body.
That part, please everybody understand. I've never heard of it.
That's nonsense.
Like we talked about on Mount Everest, in many cases, leaving the dead behind is a matter of survival for the living. Let me now tell you the story that first led me to fully realize that the recovery of cave corpses is my least favorite thing in the world. Expert Australian diver David Shaw was diving in Bushman's Hole in South Africa at a depth of around 890 feet, aka the death zone. While he's down there, he discovers the dead body of fellow diver Dion Dreyer, whose corpse had been missing for 10 years. It had been assumed Dion would never be found, so David Shaw decides he wants to go back down there several months later and bring Dion up for his parents to finally have some kind of closure. It's a great idea. It's a great idea in theory. David Shaw finds Dion again during the retrieval mission, but when he tries to cut him free, he becomes entangled with the body. You see, the corpse was supposed to become negatively buoyant, but instead it floated. This was because, surprise, fats in the body had turned into a soapy substance called adipocere, or corpse wax, essentially a floating soap mummy. And once cut free from its harness, it floated.
But okay, hold on. First of all, I hated the fact that she made fun of Dave Shaw.
Yeah, that part I'm struggling with. I mean, David Shaw was really trying to do something amazing, and they planned it out tremendously. And you may recall I had to do 2 David Shaw videos because I had to correct myself, where I had to go back and say, look, this was seriously planned. But she isn't wrong that at 800 feet, it is a death zone. There's no room for error.
No. I get it. But I think she's using the terminology for the 8,000. There's the tall mountains where above certain, height is the death zone. And he should try to use that for scuba diving. That's not a thing. Anyway, the point is, although I didn't appreciate what she said about Dave Shaw, the body of Dion Dreyer, as far as I understand, it was a skeleton at that point. There wasn't any flesh in it. It was just, and that's the reason why
I can't remember.
Because my first idea was, why don't they just tie a rope and pull it? If it's really a soap mummy, as she's saying, there's skin or whatever, why don't they pull it? And the answer was because it was a skeleton.
I can't remember though. I'm trying to remember the facts, so I'm sure we're gonna get comments on it.
Sure.
What was it? I remember he was trying to tie it up or whatnot, and he got entangled. David Shaw had problems from that.
He got entangled, yes.
He got entangled. So I don't know. I don't know if it was all skeleton at that point. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe you do. Okay.
At one point, while Shaw wrestles with the corpse, its head actually comes off and bobs in front of his helmet camera for a moment.
Because he was a skeleton.
Wrestling with a swollen corpse just floating there in the watery darkness is creepy enough, but the story isn't over. David Shaw used up so much energy trying to settle down this floating body, and the pressure was so wildly high at these depths that he suffered respiratory failure and also died. So now there are 2 corpses down there. In a strange twist of fate, a few days later, Shaw's body was found on the roof of the underwater cave, and below him was Dion Dreyer, floating in the glow of his flashlight. So
is that wrong?
Awful as this was, he was able to bring Dion Dreyer back to his parents.
I mean, look, I don't remember the story exactly, but from what I understand is, David Shaw got entangled with his own line while trying to put Dion's body in a body bag. That's what he was trying to do. He didn't get entangled with the body. That makes no sense. He was trying to put it in a body bag, and he had his line, right? and he got entangled with his own line, and then he got entangled in the body. And anyway, it was a mess. So yes, he CO2'd out. Something happened. Nobody knows exactly what happened, but he passed out and drowned. That's true. From what I remember, when they pulled the line, David Shaw's and Dion's body were both entangled in the line. Mm-hmm. So when they pulled the line out, they pulled the two bodies out. It wasn't like the corpse was found on the ceiling of the cave. Nobody went back down to get David Shaw or Dion Dryers. If you don't remember, David Shaw specifically said, if I die, leave me there. Don't come. No one risks their life. Do not come to get me. So the only reason why they got the two bodies was because they were both entangled in the line. So when they pulled it, they came with it.
Yep. That's what you're right. I recall that now.
Yeah.
So, now you know, Deathlings, that's my kryptonite. Exploding corpses? Bring 'em on! Bog bodies? Yes, please. Meeting an unexpected corpse in an underwater cave? Nope.
Okay.
Well, I just don't want to give misinformation. I mean, we don't meet underwater corpses in underwater caves.
That's not a thing.
We just don't. I mean, I don't think that's a thing. I really don't. I mean, not without going and looking for one that was known to be there. But is her whole channel on death?
I think so.
So, you can't blame her for talking about death, or at least thinking this.
I just feel that this was a stretch, right? To say that your biggest fear is, like bodies inside caves that people run into. Like, what is that's
but
just
maybe
made
that,
up.
Maybe,
that makes no sense.
Well, I mean, I wish she would come on. Maybe this really is her fear. And if she, we'd invite her on and we'd just be like, look, we're cave divers, tell us where you're hearing this, or what information you have to base to state that, it's sort of commonplace to run into dead bodies. That's the part that I struggle with in this whole video. But,
yeah,
I get it. She's a mortician, man. So that's what they do.
She mentioned two stories during her whole, spiel about this being her biggest fear. One of them was Dave Shaw, which we talked about extensively towards the end of the reaction. And the first one was about Sheck Exley, which, again, we recorded a video with all the details. And I'm going to leave that video right here. You guys can check it out and see that Sheck Exley didn't die in just like a regular cave diving accident. It was pretty hardcore what these guys were doing.
Bye, everybody.
See you in the next one.